All right, so today we're diving into a story that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
And it's about a millionaire OnlyFans model,
Mm-hmm.
Lily Phillips.
Okay.
She took on this, she called it a challenge,
Okay.
to sleep with 100 men in a single day.
Wow.
Yeah. So our source for this is an article from Sweet.pub, and it's titled, very simply,
Yeah.
I slept with 100 men in one day.
Straightforward.
It is. And we're going to try to unpack it all. Like, why would someone do this? What's going on psychologically?
Right.
And also, like, bigger picture. You know, what does this say about online fame and sex work in the digital age?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that the article makes you think about like the pressures on content creators today
Yeah.
and how far they might go for like views and engagement.
Totally. And like right off the bat, the article describes how she planned this whole thing meticulously like an athlete prepping for a competition.
Oh, wow.
She even like made sure the men had proof of recent STI tests.
Oh, wow. So she was trying to be, safe at least.
Yeah, like I guess it shows some attempt at harm reduction.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. But it's also like transactional in a way.
Yeah.
Like even though it's sex, there's this element of business involved.
Right.
Especially since it's all online.
Yeah, and the author of the article even talks about their own discomfort with the whole thing.
Okay.
Like they compare it to watching a film like Nymphomaniac,
Uh-huh.
which, if you've seen it,
Yeah.
it's pretty intense.
Right.
So it makes you wonder, is the online world making us less sensitive to things that we used to think were taboo?
I think that's a really important question.
Okay.
Are we just bombarded with so much extreme content that we don't even recognize the potential harm?
Right.
Like, are we becoming numb to what's actually happening behind it all?
Yeah. And so Lily, the OnlyFans model, she describes herself as a feminist.
Okay.
And she says this is just her job,
Okay.
like fulfilling customer requests.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard not to question that, especially given all the societal pressures on women in the sex industry.
Right. Like, can you really have agency in a system that objectifies and commodifies women?
Exactly. Is this really empowerment, or is there something else going on?
Right. And then there's the emotional side of it. Like, in the article, she talks about how she's always been a slut.
Okay.
Like, she owns it.
Yeah.
But then she also breaks down crying after the event.
Well, wow.
And talks about how much pressure she felt to satisfy every single guy.
That's interesting.
So it seems like there's a lot more going on emotionally than she lets on.
Right. There's got to be, it sounds like there might be some need for validation.
Yeah.
Or even like some self-harm behavior
Yeah.
that's being disguised as empowerment.
That's a good point. The article doesn't like diagnose her or anything.
Right.
But it hints at how complex her emotional state must be.
Definitely. And the article mentions that her team thought the whole thing was a huge success.
Oh, wow.
And now she's talking about breaking her own record.
Like how?
Yeah, she wants to sleep with 1,000 men next time.
1,000?
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's like this need to push the boundaries further and further
Yeah.
to stay relevant.
Yeah.
And I guess it makes you think about, like, when does ambition become self-destructive?
Exactly. Especially in this online environment
Right.
where you're constantly rewarded for being more and more extreme.
And the article kind of connects this to a bigger point about how our society is normalizing these service professions,
Mm-hmm.
where people are pushing their boundaries, like physically and emotionally,
Right.
just for views, likes, and money.
It's scary to think about.
It is.
Like, are we blurring the lines between what's real and what's just for show?
Totally.
What's a genuine connection and what's just transactional?
Right.
And all of this is just for online validation.
And what's interesting is that Lily's already a millionaire.
Oh, wow. So it's not even about the money for her.
Right.
So what is it then?
That's the question.
What could possibly be driving her to this?
Yeah, what's going on psychologically?
It's a really deep question.
Yeah. And the article also talks about her family.
Okay.
Like, they know what she does for a living,
Mhm.
but she's not totally open with them about it.
So there's like a secrecy to it,
Yeah,
a sense of shame maybe.
maybe.
It just adds another layer to the whole thing.
And there's this one detail that's pretty creepy.
What's that?
The article mentions how a bunch of her dad's friends have reached out to her on OnlyFans.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's so messed up.
It's really unsettling.
It's like this blurring of lines between personal and professional.
Right, and how the internet makes these kinds of encounters possible.
Yeah, it's like consent and exploitation all mixed up.
I was really uncomfortable reading that part.
It makes sense.
It's just a reminder that the online world isn't separate from real life.
Right.
What we do online has real-world consequences.
Absolutely, for ourselves and the people around us.
Yeah, it's a lot to process, and I'm sure our listeners feeling the same way.
I bet.
The author asks this question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it just her and us watching
Yeah.
till it's our turn to join the party?
Whoa.
I know, right? It's like, are we just observers or are we becoming participants in this whole thing?
Yeah, that's heavy.
It really makes you think about where we draw the line,
For sure.
between just watching and actually taking part.
Absolutely. And it makes you think about what's even considered normal anymore.
Right. Like what's extreme or shocking to some people is just normal online.
Yeah, especially in certain parts of the internet.
Like our idea of what's acceptable or healthy,
Mm-hmm.
even what success means.
Yeah,
It's like it's all getting warped by these extreme behaviors.
totally. And the article asks this really interesting question about Lily.
Yeah.
It says, if Lily didn't claim to enjoy what she does, would she have the following she has?
Oh, that's a good question.
It makes you think about like how much of online fame is just performance.
Right. Is it real or is it all fake?
Yeah, like are people just putting on a show for the audience?
And I guess that makes you question how much of what we see online is authentic,
Exactly. Like, is it self-expression or is it all calculated?
just for engagement and profit.
Right. And that brings up some big questions about consent and exploitation.
Yeah. And even like, what are the boundaries of self-expression?
Totally. Especially when everything can be turned into a commodity.
Mm-hmm. And there's this one line in the article that really stuck with me.
What is it?
It asks, is there anything left that money cannot buy out?
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful.
It makes you think about what's really important.
Right. Like, what things should be beyond the reach of the market?
Exactly. And the author uses this word compulsive to describe Lily's desire to break her own record.
Like, she has to keep pushing it further and further.
Yeah, even though it's obviously hurting her.
It's like she's trying to fill some kind of void.
But the money and attention are just temporary.
Right. They don't actually address the root of the problem.
So it's like the behavior itself becomes a coping mechanism.
Exactly. And that brings us back to what we were talking about before.
About trauma responses.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
are we becoming so detached from real connection?
That we're looking for it in these harmful experiences.
And are we actually making it worse by normalizing these behaviors?
Through the way we talk about them online.
Exactly. It's a disturbing thought.
This isn't just about Lily's choices
Right. It's about all of us.
and the choices we make in this online world.
It's about recognizing the risks of chasing online validation.
And being aware of the power dynamics.
Yeah, and how we might be contributing to a system that prioritizes profit over people.
So why should the average person care about this story,
Because we're all part of the system.
even if we don't realize it?
We consume content. We participate online.
And we all feel the pressure to get likes and followers.
And the article says it is her and all of us watching until it's our turn to join the party.
So it's not just about watching anymore.
Right. We're all participating in some way.
And our choices matter, even the small ones.
It's about recognizing that we have a choice
To be mindful of the content we consume
and the people we follow.
and the values we're supporting.
Because if we're not careful, we might become desensitized to the things that should be alarming us.
Right, like the exploitation and the harm,
Exactly. It's a choice between becoming numb or choosing a different path
one that's based on empathy and real connection.
and a deeper understanding of ourselves.
That's a really powerful message.
I think so too.
It's about recognizing the forces that shape our choices,
And making conscious decisions.
both online and offline.
This has been a really thought-provoking conversation.
Yeah, I think our listener has a lot to think about now.
I hope so, because it's these tough conversations that make us question ourselves and the world around us.
And hopefully they'll lead to more compassionate choices.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us.
This story really makes you think about what's acceptable.
Yeah.
Like, where's the line between, just a job and exploitation?
Right. And the article asks that directly, like, do you consider this just another job, or is it a well-paid form of exploitation?
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
Like, on the one hand, she's an adult making her own choices,
Right. She's setting her own terms.
and she's making a lot of money.
But this is where the whole conversation about sex work gets tricky. Totally. It's like, how do you balance individual choice with the potential for coercion?
Right, and all the societal pressures.
And the fact that money plays such a big role.
The article also asks if what Lily's doing qualifies as feminism.
Oh, that's a whole other can of worms.
Right, like, is this empowering or is it inherently exploitative?
It depends on how you define feminism, I guess.
Yeah, like you could say it's about women making choices about their body.
Right. Free from judgment.
But then you could also argue that real empowerment means changing the system.
The system that objectifies women and profits from them.
So is Lily really free to make her own choices?
Or is she just a product of this culture that rewards extreme behavior?
And that she's profiting from?
The article asks, if she didn't claim to enjoy what she does, would she have the following she has?
Right, like, does she even have a choice at this point?
Can she even say that she doesn't enjoy it? Is this truly a choice?
It's like we're all trapped in this system where our worth is based on likes and followers.
And it makes you question how much agency any of us really have.
It's kind of disturbing.
It is, but I think it's important to acknowledge these forces that are shaping our choices.
Even the choices we think are our own.
And we have to think about what happens when we normalize these behaviors
Like when we just accept them as just another job.
without considering the harm or the ethical implications.
It all comes back to that question. Is there anything left that money cannot buy out?
That's a question everyone needs to ask themselves.
Like, what are your values?
What are your boundaries?
What things are off limits, even for money?
Because if we don't figure that out, we might lose sight of what's really important.
Our humanity.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a really intense deep dive.
Yes.
I think our listener has a lot to think about.
Yeah, these are the kinds of conversations that make us question everything.
And hopefully they'll help us make better choices
More compassionate choices.
in our online lives and our offline lives.
Thanks for joining us.